What happens here isn't magic. It just feels that way because there is no telling what will occur when people, unsatisfied with the way things are, have the courage to imagine a better way and the freedom to turn what could be into what will. That takes bold thinking, disruptive ideas, and an amazing array of perspectives, people, and intellectual pursuits. But it's hard to capture something that won't stand still. That's Berkeley.
Berkeley.
Built by the people, for the people. Founded and forever inspired by those who had an unstoppable drive to build a new state on the western edge. We embraced the radical idea of a public university and never looked back. Hundreds of thousands of lives changed for people who then go out and change the lives of millions more in our state, our nation, and the world. That's Berkeley. Taking on today's biggest challenges. A revolutionary treatment for malaria? Check. Unlocking the secrets of the universe? Been there. Preserving Mark Twain for prosperity? Done that. We are always one step ahead. And sometimes that step is too big for words alone to describe. We express. We interpret. We reach further. We celebrate. And we are celebrated for our long tradition of untraditional excellence. Driven by a deep desire to do better, to do good. That's Berkeley. Life-shaping, world-changing, future-building.
Berkeley.
Berkeley.
Berkeley. Berkeley.
Berkeley.
Berkeley.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our newly admitted transfer student webinar. So excited to have all of you join us this evening for a very special program that we have developed for you. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Stephen Nguyen, and I'm one of the academic counselors at the Transfer Student Center. And I have the delight pleasure today to serve as your moderator for this webinar. So I wanted to first and foremost congratulate you on your acceptance to UC Berkeley. At this point, you've probably heard this many times, and you will continue to hear that. So soak it all in. And today, I have the delight pleasure to be the first to welcome you to our Berkeley family. Although we hope to welcome you in an in-person reception, we must adhere to the national directives regarding COVID-19 social distancing precautions. Hence, we are joining you all live tonight, virtually from our homes. Make no doubt about it, you've been offered the opportunity to join the most prestigious public university in the world, in the nation, and make no mistake about it, you've earned it. This year, we read every single transfer application, over 20,000 applications. It took a very, very long time, and we thoroughly enjoy doing it because you all are so accomplished. You are inspiring and made the most of all the opportunities that have come your way. And today we are thrilled to welcome you to Cal. Our incoming transfer students is the most diverse class. Some of you are student parents, reentry students, veterans. In fact, our oldest transfer student this year is 48 years old. And that is a true commitment to lifelong learning. Many of you will be the first in your families to attend college, and many of you will be the first to graduate from college. No matter what your background or your aspirations for your time at Berkeley, know that you already accomplished so much, and we couldn't be more prouder to call you all Golden Bears. So trust me when I say you've earned this spot. If anyone in this webinar tonight has any doubts that they've earned their spot, believe me when I say we did not make a mistake. You've earned it and you've worked super hard to get to this point. With that, I would like all of you, our new admins, to give yourselves a pat in the back. And I would like for our new admins to remember this moment. This is a true major milestone in your life. It's also important to acknowledge the network of support that got you here, because it does take a village, right? So to all the moms, the dads, the grandparents, the siblings, family members, partners, and friends who are also joining us today alongside our new admins, we also want to acknowledge you in this process. You've invested your time, your energy, and maybe some money, maybe a lot of money to help your student get to where they are today. So for all of our support networks joining us today, you should also give yourselves a pat in the back. The purpose of today's event is to really learn about UC Berkeley and if it's the right place for you. Trust me, it is, right? Today, we have a full agenda for you and we are excited to answer any pressing questions that you have. And you'll get a chance to learn about key support programs, including financial aid, CE3, and hear from our current students about their perspective of Berkeley. Throughout the presentations, there are many ways to connect with us. So feel free to drop a comment on YouTube, on Facebook, or text us your questions at 510-986-4300. And again, that number is 510-986-4300. We have a team of dedicated staff. We have our academic counselors from the Transfer Center, Andrew, Lucy, and Alejandra on the other line. SB, also from the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, our transfer reading manager, are all spread out on Facebook, on YouTube, on their phones, waiting for questions from all of you. So if you have a specific question, it might be useful to also send us your student ID number. That's a 10-digit number that starts typically with a 303 located on your CalCentral account. So those are ways you can connect with us virtually tonight. Hopefully you all take advantage of that, and they're all eager to answer your questions throughout this presentation. So I have the delight pleasure today to welcome a beloved administrator on campus who has been a relentless transfer advocate. Mauricio has spearheaded many policies and opened up funding for transfers on campus. So without further ado, please welcome our Assistant Vice Chancellor for Student Equity and Success, Mauricio Mejia.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. On behalf of our Vice Chancellor, our Chancellor, and our campus, we want to be the 100th person or so. You're going to hear this a lot. Welcome, congratulations. This is a big accomplishment. All that is true. And so I want to lift my voice into that chorus, welcoming you to this family. Before I jump in, usually I talk a little bit about a couple of pieces of advice. I want to tell you for a minute a little bit about myself, because I think it's helpful to understand the context of who you're listening to understand their why, so that you can better understand the what that they're talking about. So as Steve has mentioned, we're very proud of our transfer class, mostly because there's such a wealth of experience, a spectrum of experience that our transfer class brings to the Berkeley experience, to the Berkeley classroom, to what it is to be part of a community that is Berkeley. So that's you all. And I agree with Steve that there is no mistake. The part of the reason why we bring you and why we accept you and why we look at you all as so precious to this fabric is because you bring that experience and you're not afraid to talk about it and live it. So a little bit about myself. I did my undergrad at Berkeley from a first generation background. I consider myself, you will see many of you that are first generation in college will continue to live a first generation experience. First generation graduates from college, first generation graduate school, first generation professionals, et cetera, et cetera. And along with that comes trying to figure out some of these things on your own, but you don't have to do it alone. And so first generation college student, both of my parents are immigrants. I grew up in a family that really looked at, hard work and the collective. And so, for instance, I grew up working with my family in the fields and also cleaning buildings with them. So I think that sort of translated to many of the side hustles I had coming to Berkeley as a first generation low income student. So a lot of my side hustles in college were around cleaning the daycare centers, working, doing as a forklifter in a meatpacking company in Richmond. You name it, I had to figure it out because there was no way I could ask my parents to support me financially because I was already feeling a sense of guilt that I was, for a short time, going to not be contributing to them financially. Longer term, of course, it meant that I could contribute to their finances as a family. So in any case, that's a little bit about myself. So a couple pieces of advice. You'll hear this often is Berkeley is a big place. So part of your challenge, your goal, what you're looking to do is really build your network of support. The Chancellor talks about this as building your own neighborhoods. And some of those neighborhoods will be based upon your affinity groups. Some of them will be based upon your major. Some of them will be based on our careers. Some of them, so on and so forth. And many of them will be intersectional, but it's your challenge, but you don't have to do it by yourself. The Transfer Center and the staff associated with the Transfer Center will be a hub of knowledge that'll connect you based upon what you say you want to do. And so part of what you're doing is building a blueprint for yourself that's gonna have you feel and be successful through this journey, should you choose us. I think the second thing I'll say is that as transfer students, your time is limited. That's an absolute truth. And it's our duty, it's your duty, our duty as the Transfer Center and other programs associated with it to make sure that we're held accountable for what it is to have a successful transfer student experience here at Berkeley. And I'll give you one example. I think the Berkeley had the first transfer student center in the country, in the UC system, but in the country, generally speaking. And that came out of students and administrators and staff saying that was a need and that needed to happen. And you'll get a chance to talk to Lorena, who was our first director of the Transfer Center. And we just celebrated our 20th year. So we're very much all about responding to what the needs are that our students are telling us. So whether that be students with dependents, formerly incarcerated students, undocumented, et cetera, you will see a pattern that Berkeley is creating the first of its kind in those services, and that will continue to happen. So as you continue to see gaps, name them. Third thing is I want to talk about self-talk. So I want to challenge you to develop a positive self-talk. So when I talk about self-talk, I mean there's a voice in our head that tells us, that connects meaning to things. So let's say I fail at something. I don't do well in a job interview. What does my inner voice tell me about what that setback is? Is it positive, more so like, okay, what did I learn from this? Or is it one of, here I go again, I fail, I suck, and a spiral begins to happen. And so at a place like Berkeley, it behooves you to surround yourself by people that build you up, that tell you the truth, but that build you up and support a positive framing of you being the best you can be here in this context. And then lastly, I'll say part of the environment of being at Berkeley is not just about focusing on what you do well, but also thinking about what do you want to improve. Yes, you want to improve your strengths, but you also want to improve your perceived areas of growth. And so that means taking strategic risks. And that means, having the courage. One of the examples that I give is I consider myself an introvert, and a quiet person, a reserved person. And so in college, I had to turn around my way of thinking about what risks I was going to take, small, medium, and large, to be somebody that could speak to folks in groups and not begin to stutter, or not feel self-conscious, et cetera. And that's part of your challenge here at Berkeley too, is how do you grow yourself in terms of your communication skills, your personal dynamics? How do you get to your best healthy self, not just academically, but in every way that's possible? And I'll leave you with one more thing, because I know my time is limited and you have a lot of great people to hear from. There's a little poem I want to read. It's called Fear, and it's by Khalil Gibran. It is said that before entering the sea, a river trembles with fear. She looks back at the path she has traveled from the peaks and mountains, the long winding road, crossing forests and villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. To go back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because only then will fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know that it's not about disappearing into the ocean, but of becoming the ocean. And so I know, and I would say, it's natural in this moment that we're living, with COVID, that there's a lot of unknown, there's a lot of fear. And as I mentioned before, you don't have to live that by yourself. You have a network of support here at Berkeley. And I'll be honest with you, and I put up our network of support and our safety net of support against anybody in the country. We do a lot of work to really be prepared to receive you and welcome you. And with that said, I really hope, we really want you to come, but I'm also not going to just make stuff up to you and say, it's going to be perfect. Anywhere you go is not going to be perfect, but I will say here, there's a network of support. We really want you to come, and we hope you will choose us for this next part of your life journey. Thank you all.
Wow, thanks again, Fabricio. We would give you a big round of applause, but we could do that virtually. So hopefully you could hear us clapping for you. And thank you so much for your time. I know you're super busy, but he spent his early evening with us this afternoon. So we're really grateful for that. Many of you, as Fabricio mentioned, we're really here to help you think about your options. We understand if you got into UC Berkeley, you probably got into other schools that we should not name during this webinar. And so we want to help you think about all the options that you have and what makes sense for you. As Fabricio mentioned in his welcome, that we have a lot of support for you, and we brought them to you, or they're here with us on this webinar. And one of those persons that I would like you to introduce you to all is Sylvia Marquez, who is the Associate Director for Financial Aid. Many of you are wondering to yourselves, how am I going to finance my education at UC Berkeley? Well, I'm glad to tell you all that we have one of the best financial aid packages out there. The financial aid office at Berkeley does not brag about themselves as much as they should, so I'll do that for them. And one key data that I want you to walk away with today is that UC Berkeley graduates walk away from UC Berkeley or from their undergraduate degree with the least amount of debt compared to the other UCs. And that is a huge part to the financial aid office and Sylvia's efforts towards spearheading a lot of the national financial aid news, the packages. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our Associate Director of Financial Aid and Scholarships, Sylvia Marquez.
Thank you, Steve. I want to be number 101 and welcome you and congratulate you on your admission to Berkeley. We are incredibly humbled that you chose us in terms of applying, and I'm here to give you more information that will hopefully help you and your support network answer many of the questions that you may have. I want to tell you a little bit about me. I come from a low-income family. I'm first in my family to graduate from college, and I finished my degree here at Berkeley in 1995. And coming from a family where finances were a struggle, I am crystal clear on how important it is to make sure you understand how financial aid works. And many of you coming from other schools have some experience in this, which is great. And I love working with the transfer population for that reason. That said, we don't expect you to have the answers. And so we are here to support you through that journey and answer those questions before you have to make a decision. And at the end of the day, we hope that you will join us. I want to start by talking a bit about how you compare those offers, because I am certain that you have some great offers in front of you. And making that decision is not going to be easy. And the way that you would do that is by evaluating the net cost between one school and the next. And the net cost is not always the easiest thing for financial aid professionals to explain to students, but it's basically the amount that might be in your financial aid package that is loan and work. So the total cost minus the grants and scholarships that you've been awarded. That's the difference, and that's the apples to apples comparison. But what I want to do first is just show you a quick video of how to understand the net cost, and then we'll talk about Berkeley specifically.
Little differently. The most important thing to focus on is the net cost. This is what you'll actually have to pay. To figure out net costs, you start with the total cost of attendance, which includes everything from tuition, housing, books, food, transportation, and personal expenses. Then you subtract out all of your scholarships and grants. This is free aid that you don't have to pay back. This number is your net cost and the actual amount that you and your parents should prepare to pay. And you can use loans and work study to do this. Once you know a school's net cost, you can then compare the financial aid offers from other universities. At UC, we have the financial aid shopping sheet. This gives you financial aid information in a consistent format and calculates the net costs. Many other colleges and universities use it too. So take a deep breath. And if you have any questions, get in touch with your campus financial aid office. We'll have links in the video description.
Great. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the cost of attendance at Berkeley, which is the first part of that formula and figuring out what the net cost is. And I want to be realistic about what these numbers mean and how they play into your financial aid package. So what we're showing you here is what it could cost you for 1 year at Berkeley. And I think that there tends to be the initial sticker shock when you see the numbers at the bottom. And so I want to break that down just a little bit, so you have the information that you need to understand your aid package. So I'm showing you all 4 types of living arrangements and in essence, the budgets that we have that we use to package financial aid. And I want to break this down into 2 sections. So the top section is the direct costs, or the things that the institution that Berkeley may charge you for directly. And this would hold true for the most part at any institution. So tuition and fees, which any institution is going to charge you. Room and board, if you choose to live with us, whether that's in a traditional residence hall or dorm, or an on-campus apartment, including our family village, our university village where our families live. And then health insurance. If you don't have your own, then you would need to consider that cost for ours. And those are the things that we would charge you for directly at the top. The bottom portion of your budget are the things that are a bit more within your control in terms of managing. So things like if you're living off campus, your rent and utilities, how many roommates do you have? Where do you end up living? How much rent are you paying? Food, do you buy in bulk? Do you cook at home more? So we have an expense for that. Books and supplies, you're going to obviously need those. And then personal and transportation, because you're going to need to get around, you have personal things that you need to purchase. And it's really about how you budget. Are you, buying brand new books? Are you borrowing? Are you renting? There are different ways to keep some of these expenses down. So that bottom line number may or may not be what you actually need for 1 year at Berkeley. However, this does serve as the basis for your financial aid awards. And so it's important to understand what goes into those expenses. So I want to move on and talk a little bit about Cal Central. And this is going to be your hub for everything related to financial aid, registration, and billing. If we could go back one slide, Steve, please. This is your landing page. So after you were admitted and you clicked on the financial aid information, the link, it took you here. I just want to point out a few things here before we get to the actual awards. First is just where your offer of admission is and where you can accept your offer, and just paying special attention to whether you're required to pay the $250 enrollment deposit or not. Many of you may not be required to, so I would definitely encourage you to make sure you're reading those details. And then just below that offer of admission, you'll find new admit resources. Many of the questions that you may have, you may be able to find the answers here or links to those pages to find that information. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. And then front and center, you'll find your tasks. So anything that we may need from you, if we are requiring additional information, whether it's financial aid, whether it's new student services, admissions tasks, you're going to find those front and center so that they're easy for you to get to. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about those in a minute. And then on the far right side of the screen, you'll see your notifications. So if we're trying to get in touch with you, we are going to put in a communication in Cal Central. So it's an easy way to find things. You're going to probably be inundated with communications from several different offices. So it's always a good idea to take a few minutes each day and just scan through your messages because there's a lot of critical information. We wouldn't want you to miss out on anything. So at the very top, you will see that there is a section called My Finances. So you would click on that and it will take you to the next screen, which is a way to start looking at billing information on the left. But in the middle is where you're going to find your financial aid information. So you're looking at the right aid year, you're going to click on the button that says View Awards. And it will take you to a screen that has a whole lot of information and can be a little bit overwhelming. So I want to spend a little bit of time breaking this down. In the upper left corner, you're going to find your net cost information. Again, that's the number that you use to compare apples to apples. Just below that, you're going to find communications. So if we are, again, asking you for more documentation or just have notifications for you, we are going to put them here as well. In the middle is the cost of attendance based on the living arrangement that you indicated to us on your aid application. So you can view it by semester if you click on View Term Amount. And it's always a good idea to do that because you may be participating in a program that only applies to one semester and not the whole aid year. So if you decide that you want to join us in the fall, you will have Golden Bear orientation. That only happens in the fall. So that would be a good reason to look at your budget and see that there is a difference between fall and spring. Just below that is housing information. So if you initially indicated that you might be living off campus, but you change your mind and you want to live on campus and you want to see how that's going to impact your aid, and it will because the costs are different. This is a way for you to get in there and just estimate. You can play with this. It doesn't commit you to any contract in terms of housing. And we will readjust your aid in real time so that you have real information in front of you that you can make decisions off of. And then on the far right, you're going to find your award information. We always list your awards from best, most desirable awards to What are the least desirable awards, which are going to be your loans and your unsubsidized loans at that, which are the ones that accrue interest while you're in school. Again, always a good idea to view your awards by term so that you can see if there are any differences between one semester and the next. A good idea because it could impact your refund or what you should expect for that semester. And then what I want to spend a little bit of time on is the tasks. So under the communications, if we need something from you, we're going to list it here. And I've circled in red. There's a little arrow there and you'll find it pretty much next to almost everything on this page, which just means that you can expand it and there's going to be more information there for you. So if we go to the next page, I've opened the tasks and I've opened some of the awards. It's really important that you're taking a look at this. And again, I know it's a lot of information, but it's good information for you to have so you can make some informed decisions. So in this particular example, this student has conditional awards. So on the right-hand side where the red arrow is, there's more information about the type of award that is. So if it's an award that is dependent on you completing another process, it'll be conditional. And that information is listed there so that you know that that's not an award that will actually pay out and that there are things that you need to do. So always good to take a look at that. And then in relation to your tasks, some of you may be selected for verification. It's not that you did anything wrong on your application at all. It just means that either the federal government, the state of California, or us as a financial aid office have selected you to document the information that you put on your application. You just need to accept your offer of admission before you start submitting those documents to us for review. But it's always good to open it up, read the details. You'll find the links to what you need to do next in order to complete those tasks. And then moving on. I want to talk to you a little bit about delegated access. And so what this means is that, like many of you, I had folks that were helping me through this process. My aunt helped me all the way through it. And, you know, if you have someone that you want us to be able to speak to about your information, your financial aid awards, the budgets, what changed, any of those things, we do need your permission to do so. And, you know, by law, we're required to protect your information. And so the way that you indicate to us that there's someone that you want us to speak to is through delegated access. And the way that you get there, and it's a little hard to see the number on this, and I apologize for that, but in the upper right corner where your picture would be, and it may still be a bear right now, you click on that, it will open up and it will show you profile. You click on that. And it will take you to the screen that we're looking at here. On the left-hand side, under privacy and permissions, you will see something that says Delegate Access. If you click on that, that's where you can add a person that you want us to be able to speak to. You can provide that person access to your finances, to your actual courses, to your grades. You don't have to, but you can choose any of those areas and you can revoke any of that at any point in time as well. And it will ask for a passphrase or a password. We're going to ask for that. So make sure it's something that you and your delegate are going to remember, because if they ever call and want information, we're going to ask them for that passphrase. And if they don't have it, we will not share that information, which I know can be frustrating. We just want to make sure that we are protecting our students and their information. So I want to talk a little bit about outside scholarships. And so one of the things that Steve mentioned at the beginning is that our students, 60% of our students do not borrow loans by the time they graduate. And that's, you know, that's a pretty significant number. We're quite proud of that. Part of that is the financial aid package that we are able to put together. The other part of that is our students. Our students are incredible in that they bring in over $10 million each year in outside scholarships. And what that does, our commitment to our students, is that we want you to maximize every free dollar that you bring in. And so if you're bringing in outside scholarships, and I'm not talking about federal grants or state grants, I'm talking about outside scholarships. So like from your community college or your employer or your community organization, and you win a scholarship, our commitment to you is that we will reduce your need-based loans, so subsidized loans, and work study first, before we will reduce your grants and scholarships. There are always a few exceptions. especially when it comes to tuition awards and they have to pay tuition. There may be some exceptions there, but generally speaking, what we will do is reduce those loans and work study first. And what that does is allows you to keep that loan and work offer very low. Maybe you don't even need to borrow it. Maybe you don't need to work. And we know that you're a student and we don't want you to be working if you don't have to be. If it's something you want to do, it's part of your research, it's part of your interest, that's one thing. But I think the more you can take advantage of the free dollars, the better you will be in terms of being able to focus on those other parts of your life, and your well-being overall will just be in a very different space. And then moving on, I want to talk a little bit about appeals and circumstances. So as a public institution, there is a maximum amount of grants and scholarships that we can provide. We tend to be on par for the most part within the UC system, and certainly with that other school in Southern California that is always stealing students from us, that many of you may be considering as well. We're very close and on par. There are circumstances, especially right now, where families are experiencing changes in their finances. Many of our students and families are coming to us and losing jobs and other things. And so we do have a process for appeals. And so this slide just covers some of the things that we can consider as part of that appeal process and some other things that we aren't able to consider. And so things like a loss or reduction of income, if there is a death in your family in terms of your parent or spouse, child support, divorce, lots of things can happen. Life is happening right now. And so those are some of the things we can consider. I would ask that you all can take a look closely at what we cannot consider before you put an appeal together. Our appeal process will open on May 1st. And we will get to as many of those as we can before June 1st. But I do ask that you take a look at what we can't consider, which are things like consumer debt, gambling losses, changes of assets. Those things we generally do not consider. And then there are 3 categories there at the bottom that I want to make sure we highlight here, which are if your expected family contribution or your EFC is already 0, then we've awarded you the maximum grant and scholarship that you're eligible for. And that includes federal, state, and Berkeley grants and scholarships. So submitting an appeal is not going to result in any additional aid. And so just think about that before you go through the trouble of putting together an appeal, and it wouldn't result in a change. The other group of students that we unfortunately don't do very well in supporting financially are non-resident students, so students that are not considered California residents by our residency office. Per UC Regent policy, we're unable to provide Berkeley need-based grants and scholarships to this population of students, unfortunately. And so it's an area where even an appeal in this case to the financial aid office is not going to result in a difference. I do encourage you though to speak with our residency office if you didn't get a chance to do that today. Please do consider reaching out and creating a case online, and we'll talk about how to do that shortly, to get those questions answered around your residency, because it changes your financial aid package significantly, and you need that information before the June 1st deadline. And then if you have other offers from other schools, as a public institution, we just can't negotiate our financial aid offers based on what other schools are offering you. So again, it's important to look at the net cost and make that decision with all the information you have in front of you. So I want to talk a little bit about a different kind of appeal. So I showed you the cost of attendance, and that may or may not be enough for some of our students, especially our parenting students who may have additional expenses. And so there is a way for you to increase your cost of attendance. Typically that results in more loan and work. But if you have a lot of outside scholarships that you are bringing in and you need more room to make sure you can keep all of those free dollars, this is one way that you can increase your cost of attendance and make room for all of that extra money that you're bringing in. So we do consider things like rent, utilities, purchasing a computer, any out-of-pocket medical, dental, or optical expenses you may have, childcare, relocating expenses as an entering student. You can do that in your first year. and any special books or supplies that are required of everyone in the class that you are taking. So moving on. So how do you get in touch with us? So you contact Cal Student Central. They are the front line for anything related to financial aid, registration, and billing. So the online portal is Cal Central. Cal Student Central is sort of the physical space and where the people actually are that can help you navigate and answer those questions. And we are open on the phones even now, weekdays from 9 to 12 noon, and then 1 to 4, or you can create a case online. The green button there at the bottom says for all other questions, open a case. So you can do that and reach us, and our turnaround time is still within 1 to 3 business days, but by phone, you can always reach us during the day. So I want to thank you. I want to say congratulations again, and please reach out to us if you have questions. The critical part of this is making sure that you have the information that you need so that you can make an informed decision. And again, thank you for choosing us and applying, and I hope to see you in the fall. Congratulations.
Thank you, Sylvia, once again. She's always a wealth of knowledge, and she does a very great job of explaining financial aid. I learned a couple things that I thought I knew after listening to that presentation. So thank you again, Sylvia, for spending your evening with us today. So this particular webinar is brought to you by the Transfer Student Center. So we want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the Transfer Student Center. And it's, as Fab mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, the Transfer Student Center really serves as that hub, that one-stop shop for transfer students. And in particular, we want to highlight our social media. So if you want to follow us either on Facebook, on Instagram, or on Twitter, our handle is @CalTransfers, and feel free to use the hashtag down below to connect with each other virtually. That's where most of our information will be kind of disseminated. I was talking to a newly admitted student, and they said, "Oh, I guess it's time for me to create a Facebook." And yes, that is the primary source of information that students use to know Berkeley, to get to know the campus, to check out events. So definitely take a look at that. I want to introduce our last speaker of the night before we get to our student panel. And there isn't anyone more fitting to welcome our transfer student than this particular person. Lorena is a proud Cal alum. She attained her degrees in English and Chicano studies. She later went on to attain her master's from the University of San Francisco. Lorena never takes enough credit for what she has built here for transfers. In fact, the Transfer Student Center just celebrated our 20th anniversary celebration, and Lorena has been here for all 20 years. That is 7,300 days. So trust me, she knows a thing or two about transfers. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Director of Transfer Programs, Miss Lorena Valdez.
Hi, everybody. That was great. I love the minutes that got added there. Steve, did you want? Yeah, thank you. So I'm next in line to congratulate you and to welcome you. And we are just absolutely thrilled that you've been admitted to Berkeley. We know and we recognize that there are some big decisions ahead. As a campus, we are facing some big decisions as we move to the fall semester, but that doesn't take away from the fact that you have achieved this moment, that you have achieved a great deal, that you have been accepted to UC Berkeley, that you've worked hard for that, and that you've earned this place. So I really want to emphasize that, because even in the midst of all of this uncertainty that we are all living in, you are here and you have achieved this. And we don't want to take that away, not even for a moment. So I hope that you are well. I hope that your families are well. As Steve said, my name is Lorena Valdez. I am the Director of Transfer Programs for the Centers for Educational Equity, and Excellence, or CE3. In this role, I serve and I oversee the Transfer Student Center, Student Support Services, which is a federally funded TRIO program, and the Miller Scholars Program, which is a small undergraduate research program here at Berkeley. A little bit about me: I grew up in East Los Angeles. My family, including my mom, are all living out in the Southern California area. I was a first generation college student, low income student as well. And I came to Berkeley in the early 80s. And yes, that was a long time ago, but Berkeley is a place that is always changing. There's always something new going on. So despite all of the years that I've been on campus, every single day is a different day. And the students that I get to work with always keep it fresh, always keep it new. I studied English and Chicano studies, as Steve mentioned, and I absolutely loved my time at Berkeley. And so for me, it is a pleasure to share what this experience can be like for new students. The fact that it opens many doors and possibilities and opportunities, and that I hope that if you're still thinking between Berkeley and other schools, that you will look really long and hard at what we're doing and how we're doing it differently than other schools are. In the next slide, I want to begin by telling you a little bit about what we do at the Transfer Center. And one of the things that both Steve and Fab mentioned earlier is that we have had, this Transfer Center has been on campus for 20 years. And let me also say why I think that's important. For one, we have been doing this a long time. For the last 20 years, we have been learning about the transfer experience. We have been learning about what makes Berkeley easy to navigate for a transfer, but we've also been learning what makes Berkeley difficult for transfer students to navigate. And we've then been building programs and services to try to address some of those key areas and some of your unique needs and some of the unique challenges that you may face. So that's one thing. The other thing that you will notice when you're looking at some of those other offers from some of the other UCs, for example, is that you know, some UCs don't even have a transfer center. Okay, that's one. And secondly, some of the UCs have one position, a counselor, perhaps a director. We have had a lot of time, a lot of years to really expand what we've begun to offer and what we've been developing for transfer students. So we really have a head start, I think, and really are in a position to help position you for what it means to come to Berkeley, to navigate and succeed at a place like Berkeley. So I'm thrilled to share that tradition with you, certainly thrilled to be part of that tradition, and really to have the opportunity to work with transfer students in general, because you are like this incredible community at Cal. I want to emphasize how true this is, because again, I will use my 20 years to draw from, but transfer students, you come to Berkeley, you are positioned, you are poised for success. You bring a lot of experience, a lot of insight, perspective, skill, a lot of things that students who begin as freshmen simply are not able to. And so I want you to begin thinking about that as something that, you know, you come to Berkeley with that really adds value to what we're doing, you know, that really makes us an even more dynamic campus environment, that really picks up, you know, sort of the intellectual aspects of the campus, and that really, you know, helps us achieve in ways that we would not otherwise be able to as a university, as an institution of higher learning. So I'm excited about welcoming you, because I know your potential and I know what you're bringing, and you're gonna make us better than we ever were before. The Transfer Center offers a variety of opportunities, of services, of programs. I've highlighted a few things here on the screen for you to take a look at. One of the key things I really want to emphasize, we have a community space. Like you come into the transfer center in Lower Sproul Plaza when we're back reopened and able to greet you there, and you'll see that there is a space. And for now, we are building that space virtually. So we are continuing to offer community and connection and being really creative about how we do that. But it's important to have a place for transfer students, a set of counselors that you can come and ask questions of, and people who know this experience and who really appreciate kind of what it means to be a new transfer student at a place like Cal. So not only do we have the space, a place, but we also, and community, but we also have things like first semester transition courses. So typically 1-unit courses specifically for those of you that are first semester students, because what we're trying to do is make sure you know about resources, make sure you know about research, make sure you know about career opportunities, make sure you know about important dates and deadlines, make sure you have a built-in community to draw from so that you're not experiencing this on your own, alone, or isolated, which can be especially difficult to do at such a large place. In addition to that, you will find that we have built mentoring programs for you. We've built internship opportunities. We've built community events, workshops, again, focused on enrichment and on helping you connect to opportunity. We recognize that you have just about 2 years, sometimes a little bit more than that, which is great if you want that and if it's possible. And for many of you, it is. You have a short time and we want to help you make the most of it. And we know that that means you have to be connected and you have to be part of community and you have to know what's out there. And so we want to help position you for those opportunities and to make sure that this experience is everything that you've hoped that it could be, and that it is as transformational as it really is intended to be. So the Transfer Center is a program within the Centers for Educational. I mentioned this before. In the next slide, I'd like to highlight that the Transfer Center is part of CE3. And CE3 is the Centers for Educational Equity and Excellence. And if we could see the next slide, Steve, that would be great. And so CE3 is these set of programs, right? And many of them have a focus on the non-traditional student community. So you will see, for example, that we are serving reentry students through our reentry student program. Reentry students are typically 25 years of age and older. Many of our reentry students are also transfers. So we are serving this unique population of students through CE3 because there are some unique experiences there. And so kind of bringing together that community and drawing on some resources and opportunities to serve that community. But as you can see from this list, we have many other programs as well. The Educational Opportunity Program, or EOP, certainly, our Undocumented Students Program. The Student Parent Center was mentioned for those of you that are coming to Cal as parents. Berkeley Hope Scholars is a program for current and former foster youth. So really happy to support students who are making that journey to Cal as transfers. And I think the other thing I want to emphasize about CE3, about these set of programs, we work as, partners, right, in supporting you. So when you come to see us at the Transfer Center and you're a reentry student or a veteran student, we're going to say, you know what? Have you met Luis at the Veterans Services Center? Have you had a chance to connect with Ron from the Reentry Student Program? Because there are some unique services there that you might find beneficial. So we're constantly in this business of connecting you and making sure you're informed, because information is key. If you're not connected, you're not going to know what's out there. And you're not going to know that you can do research at Berkeley in your first year. You're not going to know, that there are opportunities for you to get involved with travel and scholarship and research and a whole variety and leadership, and to really help build your career and get ready for graduate school. All of these things we know are important to you. So these programs are really about advising you, supporting you, and connecting you. Lastly, I want to say that the people that I work with, everyone who's been on the presentation this morning, Fab, Sylvia, certainly Steve, and the other counselors at the Transfer Center, Andrew and Lucy and Alejandra, everyone that I work with across these programs, an incredible group of professionals who are really committed to working with students, and who are committed to your success. And I think that's a unique thing to say, about, working with people in such a large organization, but we are all very much focused on trying to help you make the most of this experience, helping to connect you, helping you to succeed and achieve in this very unique experience that you are about to launch off to. So we hope you will choose Berkeley. It's an incredible place. You will love it. It's exciting. Is it challenging? Yes, you will be challenged, but that's a good thing, right? Because by the time you leave Berkeley, you're going to be a very different person than the one who began. And we want to be there, to help you through that journey. So we very much look forward to connecting with you, and to being of support and service to you. So thanks, everybody. Thank you. And we hope to see you very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Lorena, for that. So the next section of our webinar will involve current students. And I'm sure all of you want to hear from current students what their experience is like. And I'm so delighted to bring on our student panels. And before we do that, I know there are over 200 people watching this live stream right now. So thank you again. And again, please send in your questions. We're happy to answer those questions via text. We will close the YouTube chat very shortly. So please text in your questions instead of using the chat functions down below. So before I do that, I wanted to share with you some of the things that you all have in common. So thank you all for RSVPing to today's event. You'll see here, Jessica and Jennifer seems to be a very popular name. In addition to some of the other names that are on there, here are some popular majors. I see political science, mathematics, English, MCB, engineering. So there's a wide range of majors. Also, your former institution. We see here, you might see the name of your particular community college or other institution that you went to. So just some things for us to kind of get us grounded into the next part of our conversations. So at this point, I want to invite the student panel to introduce themselves. So we have today 7 students who will be talking a little bit about their particular experience and sharing with you all their perspective of Cal. So I will, at this point, ask them to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name's Noah. I'm a sociology major. I was a spring admin last spring, and I transferred from Skyline College in San Bruno.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer. I'm a political science major. I transferred from Moorpark College in Southern California.
Hey everyone, my name's Angela. I transferred from Chabot Community College. I'm a Chicken Leg Studies major, and I was also a spring admin. Shout out to all our spring admins. FYI, we do have a GBO. We do have an orientation in the spring, in case some of y'all were concerned or confused.
Hi guys, I'm Christina. I transferred from Chabot Community College in Hayward as well, and I'm a media studies major, and I was admitted in fall 2018.
What's up, y'all? My name's David. I'm an English major and I transferred here from De Anza College. I'm also a spring transfer.
Hi, y'all. My name is Grecia. I am also a spring admin. Shout out to our spring admins. And I transferred from De Anza College. I'm a political science major and I am minoring in Chicanic studies.
Great.
Steve, I had to introduce myself. Anyway, my name is Dylan. I'm a molecular and cell biology major and I transferred from Napa Valley College.
Sorry about that, Dylan. So we're going to move on to the next portion, and we're going to organize our student panel by topic. I know there's a lot of different things about the student experience, and so this is a easy way for us to talk about that in these particular sections. So we're going to start off with academics, and I have a question that I would like our student panelists to answer, and it is, can you tell us the differences that you've experienced between your former institution and Cal, and what advice would you have for incoming students?
That's a great question. The difference between community college and Cal for me was definitely the size, going from smaller 40 people classes to now being in a class with 200 people. Saying that, the advice that I give is really just push yourself. I know it's a short 2 years being a transfer student, and there's so much opportunities for you to do, is really try to get involved right away as soon as possible, just to make the most of those 2 years that you have.
Kind of going off of that, so the biggest difference between community college and Cal for me was definitely the sheer amount of opportunities you have. It's just like anything you could possibly think of, Berkeley has to offer you. And with that, the advice I would give is definitely do your research on what you want from Cal ahead of time, because there are so many options and there are so many different things that it can be very overwhelming. So if you take the time to figure out how you want to spend your 2 years here, it's going to pay off in the end.
Yeah, and for me, along the lines of Jennifer and Noah, Cal is really big. I think it's something so simple, but it's like the biggest thing that really intimidated me, just going to classes across campus, the sheer amount of opportunities that they offer you. It can be really overwhelming, right? But I think it's like finding that focus and having a plan and just figuring out what you're generally interested in, I think is a good start. And that kind of goes along the lines of like, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I think that also can be detrimental. It's so big, it's intimidating, but I think if you put yourself out there, more opportunities that are more focused towards you will show up and be available for you.
I think it's similar for me. Like, I think Jennifer encapsulated it very well. Community college, in comparison to Cal, had nowhere near the number of opportunities that Cal offers. And there's just so many resources on campus that are readily available to students, like the Student Learning Center, included membership to the RSF or the residential sports facility, academic advising, and there's just so much more beyond that. And I think what I really appreciated that Berkeley offered is that they want us to succeed academically and mentally and physically as well.
Christina, would you like to share, please?
Yeah, so the transition to Cal can be a bit tough at first. The university is much bigger and the classes are definitely a lot bigger in my major. But one thing that I would tell transfers coming in is to not be afraid to ask for help. There's so many different resources at Cal, from career counseling, from academic counseling, from the SLC Center, which provides a lot of tutoring services for students. And it's just amazing how much resources we have here.
Dylan, do you want to go?
Yeah, just talking about the academics and this, honestly, like everyone else said, it's just there's so many resources here, and honestly, more so than that, the culture here at Cal, it really kind of pushed me to do more and to do better in academics, and I feel like all the opportunities afforded here are the main reason why I chose Cal. Really, like so internships, to top level faculty, the beautiful campus, and the history here. They're all parts that go into the student life at Cal and the possibilities here. Yeah.
Great. So we did disable the YouTube chat. So if you want to ask questions, please use the text message as your way to answer for us to answer questions for you. We're going to continue with the academic session. I'm going to ask Noah to talk a little bit about office hours and how double majoring works for transfer students.
Yeah, so office hours, I honestly think is one of the biggest resources that a lot of students unfortunately don't take advantage of. It's very beneficial for you to try and build, and you're not going to connect with every professor or every graduate student instructor, but you can build a relationship with them, and that can lead to just being able to opportunities for internships or letters of recommendations later on down the road when it comes to grad school or applying for jobs. What I would say tips for like talking about during office hours is just introduce yourself. Just go in even after the first class, show them who you are, that you're present, talk about what your goals are, and maybe they can steer you in the right direction of where you want to go next. In terms of double majoring for transfers, it is possible. I'm not going to lie. I'm attempting it myself. It can be challenging at times. If you do want to double major, you have to have, I know a lot of us look at assist.org when looking at the prerequisites for our majors. You have to have all the prereqs done in order to declare the second major. And you also, in order to declare it, you have to declare right before the start of your final semester. You can be given an extra fifth semester as a transfer student, but you can't surpass 136 units within that time. Oh, and you can also use, you can double dip in a sense. You can use 2 upper divisions that can count for both the major, 2 upper division courses that can count for both majors.
Thanks, Noah, for that. Jennifer, can you talk a little bit about what is it like, what do you like about Berkeley classes so far compared to your previous institution, and what the workload expectation here looks like?
Yeah, so what I love about the classes offered at Berkeley, and it's definitely because they are upper division classes, which all transfer students are going to go into anyways, but it's the depth and the specifics of the course you're going to take. Like, for example, as a political science student, I took American politics at community college, but then under the American politics concentration at Berkeley, there's a class that's political psychology of American involvement, which was so fascinating and so cool, and a class that I never thought even existed. And it's been one of my favorite classes here at Berkeley. And I could say that about almost every single one of my classes that I've taken. Just the range of classes you have the opportunity to take here are phenomenal. And then going into the workload, it obviously varies on major. Definitely if you're a social science major of any kind, reading is going to be your new best friend. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of reading always assigned. Do I do it all the time? I don't know, but it definitely can feel really overwhelming at times. And but also along with the workload, I would just say the level of critical thinking you need to have is going to be the biggest difference between your classes at community college and your classes at Cal. The workload is manageable, but you definitely do need to step up when it comes to your analysis and those types of things within your academic realm.
Great. Angela, can you talk a little bit about how classes are here at Cal, and what is it like being a spring admit?
Yeah, so Jennifer already kind of touched upon it. Classes, they can be hard, but they vary. They vary in how difficult they are. They vary in sizes. It really depends on what major you're in. Also, like if it's a lower division, upper division, is it a prereq? I've noticed that only 2 of my classes have been like close to 100 people, and that was because they were both requirements for my major. But when it came to like those elective courses that you can take for your major, they're a lot smaller, and that's not true for some majors. But other than that, like they're pretty chill. A lot of my classes are only like 40 to 50 people. It's kind of, I didn't have to adjust too much from CC, to be honest. But classes, they can be a little difficult. Academic wise, it is a lot of reading. If you are in a major that you have to read a lot, it can be kind of intense.
It just happens that way because there is no telling.
Okay. And then being a spring admit, yeah. So to be honest, being a spring admit at first was kind of intimidating. I didn't even realize I was spring admit at first, and it really impacted at first my decision whether to accept my admittance to Cal. I really did not want to start in the spring, but to be honest, like being a spring admit was really great for me. Noah, who's in this panel, like we were in the same GBO group. We lived on the same floor, literally 3 doors down from each other. So it's really cool how you connect with people, right? GBO during spring is a lot smaller. It's so intimidating in the fall to be in an orientation group so big. I was a GBO leader in the fall, and it's really nice to have that intimate group. And also GBO is not as long as it is in the fall. So besides that, like everything is not as intense. It's not as intimidating. Yes, some stuff is catered to fall and everything is worded kind of towards fall and fall declaration for your major, but you're not really competing for your professor's attention because there's not that many of you who are just beginning in the spring. And that's really a great talking point and something I use when talking to my GSIs and my professors when it came to like advice on how to approach the class and how to approach readings and that kind of stuff.
We're going to move to the next section of our webinar for the sake of time. And we're going to talk a little bit about student life. And we are going to ask David to talk about how you can get involved on campus, whether that's Greek life, sports, clubs, research, and how does clubs work on campus in general?
All right. So I'd just like to start off by saying that there are over 1,000 different clubs at Cal, and they're all extremely different. I'm not going to go over all 1,000, but you can check them out at callink.berkeley.edu/organizations. Just looking at that page, there's stuff ranging from like Quidditch to a triathlon club, songwriting, taiko, dance, consulting, entrepreneurship, volunteer work, and so much more beyond that. To get involved in these things, there should be a point of contact on their respective pages or during the first few weeks of class. And even after the first few weeks, Upper Sproul is like a shopping mall for clubs. There's just going to be people out there tabling, handing out flyers, fundraising, what have you. For those interested in research, Angie will be going more in depth about that later. But there is the URAP program, or the Undergraduate Research Apprenticeship Program. That's worth checking out. And also just straight up cold emailing professors. Check out their bios or descriptions on their respective websites. See what their focus of study is. See it if it interests you. And just email them to ask if they're interested in taking on you as a mentee. I've heard more success stories than I have not. So just put yourself out there and don't be afraid to reach out. There's also something really cool that Cal does called decals, and they are these 1 or 2 unit courses facilitated by Cal students that can range from topics like a Harry Potter decal to parkour to game design or even like the art of charisma. These are all just like super fun ways to connect with students, and the decals help you hit that 13 unit minimum if you're an LNS student. As for how clubs work on campus, all clubs have their own membership application methods, but the easiest way to find out about a club is usually just to check them out on Sproul. And they usually have info sessions during the evenings, usually 1 or 2, I believe. And from there, they're going to share how you can apply to join the club, what opportunities that the club can provide you, and how you are going to decide to, or if you should decide to join or not. And the application process for clubs are different across the board. There are clubs that are pretty lax with their applications, but there are also ones with extremely rigorous criteria. And I'm talking about like 5% acceptance rate because of their nature. I've applied to them, I've been rejected, it can hurt, but just try to keep an open mindset and keep looking elsewhere and take those kinds of opportunities as like preparation for later on, because interviewing and applying for those clubs here at Berkeley has helped me apply elsewhere. And lastly, I would just like to recommend to make a Facebook, just because it's kind of the universal medium for Berkeley students to kind of stay connected with each other, and also for the clubs to share their events and info sessions on their pages for the general public to see.
Great, thanks, David. Grace, can you talk a little bit about how difficult it is to acclimate to the student population as a transfer? And is 2 years enough to do everything, such as studying abroad, research, and all the things that you want to get accomplished at Cal?
Yeah, so is it difficult to acclimate? I feel like in every new community that you join, whether you're a transfer, a freshman, or you're starting a new school, it's going to be difficult in the beginning because you're going to feel like, where do I fit in? Right. And so some of the panelists already mentioned, like, put yourself out there. There's so many clubs and communities that you can be a part of. And that's what I did. I went to clubs, different communities, and some I vibed with and some I didn't. But when I found my community and I found my home, everything else came much more easier. It became easy to talk to people that I had, that I could vibe with better, that I had more in common with, and some I didn't have anything in common with, but we were all like connected with the community that we kind of found a home in. And that's where I came across different opportunities, academic, social. So that's the biggest thing I have to say is, you're worried about acclimating, you just got to put yourself out there real quick for a while. Don't be shy, and you'll find a community. I promise you, like David mentioned, there's just so many to choose from at Cal. Is 2 years enough time? I say it's definitely more than enough time. As a transfer, I think we already come in with a mindset of like, we got to get this, and this done. And we're really good at checklists, and we're really on point about doing our stuff. And I have faith that y'all are going to be like that. As long as you do that, and I saw some comments in the chat, like, can I get my minor, my major? That's already good that you're thinking about that. Just have it in your mind, talk to an advisor, make a plan. I'm getting my major in political science and decided after the second semester to get a minor, and I'm doing it. I was going to go to New York. Obviously I couldn't because of COVID, but I was planning to go to New York to visit law schools as part of a club that I was a part of. So all of that is doable. I'm a student parent. So yes, 2 years is enough time. And one thing I will recommend, the first thing you should do when you get to Cal is get to know the campus. It's a big campus. It's a beautiful campus, but you can get lost. And you don't want to get lost. You be going uphill. You're going to be working out. And that's what I did a lot of times. I was trying to navigate for classes on my phone. So take time to get to know the campus, the environment. Place is cool to study. It's a beautiful place just to be in.
Great. Can you talk, Angela, can you talk a little bit about how to build community and research and study abroad?
Yeah, so building community, it's kind of tricky because it really depends on you. Like, we're talking about stuff like clubs and other things. And I think those are good places to start. I really had to push myself my first semester to join anything. I went to this one organization's meetings, and I got placed into a group chat with like 300 plus people, and it's really dope. Even though I don't go to the meetings anymore, it's really cool because they share a lot of resources there, right? And so that helped me find other communities across campus because they share resources, clubs, and other things I can go to. And I think it's first like putting yourself out there. Like David said, like if you try to join clubs and apply, you might get rejected, and that kind of hurts. But I think it's at least trying trying to make friends, trying to go to what appeals to you is like that first step. After that, it's whether you want to stay, whether it's interested in you, like whether it interests you or you want to like keep growing. And then so stuff like research and study abroad. Research is, so we have a lot of programs already developed for research. There's stuff like URAP, Haas Scholars Surf, which is a summer program in UROC. So those are already ones that you can apply to. URAP is one that you can take during the semester. It's a really easy application and you can apply to multiple ones, and hopefully a professor chooses your application so you can do research with them. One thing I want to emphasize, not all research is in a lab. That's one thing that a lot of people think it is. Like, yes, we're a research institution, but no, it's not a lab. You might be interviewing people. It might be online. You don't physically have to go somewhere. And yeah, like if you do your app, it's something that you can take for units, right? And other people find their research opportunities through cold emailing, like David said. So it's really up to you, right? And what you're interested in. And then for study abroad, it's another opportunity that a lot of transfers really take advantage of, and it's totally doable. Even if you're here, like even though you were only here for 2 years, some transfers are able to study abroad twice. And that's if you take advantage of your summers and are like really good at planning. So you could always hit up the study abroad office. They have financial aid officers there, so they can really talk to you about how to pay for financial aid. They have scholarships. You can study abroad during the summer, during the semester, whatever you want to do. They have a wide array of programs that you can go to. The only thing is that some programs you do have to apply kind of early. Some of them you can apply the semester before, and others you have to apply a year in advance. So that's something like to take into consideration. People are afraid to study abroad sometimes because they're afraid they're not going to meet their major requirements or minor requirements. But a lot of these classes that you do take can fulfill those requirements. So that's another plus for study abroad.
Yeah. Thank you, Angela, and the rest of the panel. We're going to talk about a very important topic and a question that we get asked all the time, and that's about housing. We talked a little bit about, or you heard from Sylvia talking about financial aid, and another big question is about housing. So I'm going to ask the panelists to share a little bit about how they chose their housing preference.
Yeah, so I chose my housing preference based on what was easier for me at the time and even now. So getting accepted to Berkeley, I wanted to be close to campus. I wanted to have my son nearby. So that's why I chose the University Village. It was also convenient for me because my partner works really close by, so I was able to make that happen. I liked the school here, the middle school that they had to offer. So that's how I chose to come and move to the University Village.
For me, I was able to take a summer class through TAP, Transfer Alliance Project. And so I took a summer class here when I was still at CC, and I'm from the Bay. So I was able to take BART and commute there. But even from Hayward, it's like a 30-40 minute BART ride. And for like, it was just kind of hard. Like I get car sick. I would get headaches every single day coming back from Berkeley, and I just couldn't do it. And I knew for me, was it feasible to drive up there every day? If I were to have classes. And that's one of the reasons that really pushed me to look into living near Berkeley. I lived in the dorms my whole time here at Berkeley, and I really liked it. I had a really positive experience. My roommate, like during that whole time, was a transfer. We were in the same orientation group, so that was a plus. And all my friends that I like met at first, like they also lived in dorms, so it was really easy to hang out with them. And it's very convenient. Like you have a meal plan. I was at farthest 2 blocks away from campus. And so those were like one of the things that really pushed me towards accepting my Cal housing offer. And so that's it was a lot of things that made me consider doing it. It is expensive, but for me, that was all I had to pay. That was my only net cost. So it was worth it for me to like pay that expense to live that close to campus.
So I'm a commuter student, so I actually commute from Hayward every day. It's about 30 to 40 minutes, like Angela said. And the biggest factor for me to make that decision to be a commuter student and live in off-campus housing was primarily the cost. I wanted to save a lot more money for school so that way I could focus a lot more on student life. And commuting can be a bit difficult at first, but I'm pretty glad with my decision.
Great. Gracia, can you talk a little bit about the University Village, more specifically about the process, priority, what some of the benefits of living in University Village?
Yeah, so the University Village, for those who don't know, is university housing or housing through the university, specifically geared more towards student parents. And so you will have a chance to apply. There is a priority. You can Google like frequently asked questions for University Village or UC Berkeley Village. But some of the frequently asked questions are like priority lists, and there is a priority process. So unpartnered students that have children are first priority. Second priority would be like partners that have children. And then there's after that, there's more priorities to go. I think the third one is partners with no children, and then graduate students. So I was on the second tier. I did get my first option, and I accepted it right away. If you don't accept the first offer that they give you, you do go to the bottom of the wait list. So that's something to think about. I was a spring admin. I got accepted for housing in December, and I didn't start until the end of January. Fortunately for me, I live in San Jose, so I was able to commute the days that I could up here to move and make that happen. Also, some of the benefits is the community. Honestly, it's such a tight-knit community. There's a Facebook group. So like anything simple from, especially before it's like, hey, I have extra pomegranates, who want some, and then you go, a couple of streets down to your neighbor's house and pick them up. So the community here is really tight knit. There's a lot of resources for parents. My son goes to middle school. I didn't have to worry about having to pick him up or drop him off because they have a bear bus that I signed him up for. So if I stayed late in classes or on campus, it was okay because I knew he was going to have a safe ride home. There's also something called ECEP, Early Childhood Education Program, and that's childcare that you could be eligible for. Depending on your financial aid package, you might not have to pay anything. And it's for children 5 months up to 4 years. And so that's essentially childcare. There's different locations, so you don't have to worry about that. We also have like the bear pantry, and especially with everything that's going on right now, the parents have really organized to bring us a lot of good resources. We get sometimes food from even Trader Joe's and Sprouts that are donated to us. So I've really enjoyed living here, made my community here. And if you are a student parent, I suggest you look into it. It's really great as a parent, not have to worry about being so far away from your child. That's all I thought about. What if something happens and he's at school and I'm at school and I'm far away? This way we're all close and it's easier to get to class. I'm not as close as Angie was. I'm not 2 blocks away. It is about a 15-minute drive, but it beats an hour or 2 in traffic.
Great. Angela, can you talk a little bit about the res hall and kind of some of the advantages, amenities for both the dorms, on-campus dorms and apartments?
Yeah, so the dorms and the on-campus dorms and on-campus apartments, they have a lot of the same amenities. So that's kind of like your own bed, dressers, desk, chairs, closet, mirror, curtain. The difference with apartments is that you have like a full kitchen, so a refrigerator, stove, oven, microwave, and a common area. Both styles have like in-house staff. So with apartments, they clean like once a week. And in dorms, you have like a shared bathroom space, but there's also like shared study spaces and everything. The only thing with dorms is that you can have like a mini fridge if you want, but then you have to pay extra except for one of them. There's for both like laundry facilities, vending machines, all that kind of good stuff. Some apartments are their standalone buildings. Some of them are attached to the dorms, or they're like a building within a unit of dorms. So there's like a bunch of different options for what you're interested in. Most of them are super close, like within 2 or 3 blocks of the university. And yeah, and also like, I don't know if Steve's gonna cue me for meal plans, but for dorms, like you you have to get a meal plan. For apartments, you do not have to, but you're able to if you want to. So that's another plus, because also cooking for yourself, if you have food insecurity, that could also be a problem. And so that's a plus with like dorms, if that's something also you might be worried about.
Great. Thanks for addressing the on-campus meal plans. I think one of the other things that we didn't get a chance to talk about is the transfer living learning community, which is in Max Martinez. It's a dedicated transfer floor. So if you're interested in living with other transfer students, we will release an application probably sometime within the next month or so for folks who want to live on the transfer floor. It is a residence hall, and it's limited to 45 students. That's how much the capacity is on that particular floor. So we will continue to send those informations to you. So it's important to check your email, follow us on social media. That's how you will get all the information. Christina, can you talk a little bit about, since you're a commuter, some tips, suggestions on finding off-campus housing, and also what is it like being a commuter?
So luckily there's a lot of options for finding off-campus housing at Cal. And I know on our Facebook page, we posted soon after, but there are Facebook groups for finding off-campus housing at Berkeley for specific transfer classes. One other good resource is at the Basic Needs Center at Berkeley. There's a rental assistance board, and they have a lot of good information about your rights as a tenant. I would also recommend the co-ops. They're a very cheap option for finding off-campus housing because, as a lot of you know, housing in the Bay Area isn't that cheap. And the co-ops are a wonderful community if you still want to be engaged with a lot of different aspects of student life. And a lot of transfer students are a part of them as well. Of course, everyone has their own reason for being a commuter. For me, at the time, I didn't know about these options, but don't be afraid to ask for help because there are plenty of students at the Transfer Student Center. They're willing to share with you their journey for finding housing and the different options as well. And being a commuter can be a bit of a transition at first because I take the BART every day and it's about a 30-minute BART ride. So at first it can seem a bit long, but you kind of get used to it. I would definitely recommend talking to other students in your classes or in your clubs. There are more commuters at Berkeley than you may realize, and definitely try to travel with a buddy. It makes the BART ride a lot more fun. And we also have something really awesome for commuters. It's our Commuter Grant. And basically for students that are low income or need assistance with paying for parking or commuting on the BART every day, this grant helps pay off and offset some of those costs.
Thanks, Christina. This is a wealth of knowledge that you can't get online or in other places. So they definitely provide valuable input. So we're going to bring everyone back, the entire student panel, for some questions. So I will ask the entire student panel if we will filter some questions from the audience. So thank you again for texting us your questions. Please continue to send your questions in. The question from the crowd is, how to succeed in large classroom settings? Would anyone like to address that question?
I can go for that one. So I think it definitely varies by person. If you're a more outgoing and energetic person, professors ask questions and you can answer them, and it's a great way to be noticed by your professor. It was mentioned earlier, office hours, if you want a more one-on-one and personal experience. It's more, depends on what you want to get out of the experience. I definitely think office hours are the best way, no matter what, if you want to make your class feel smaller, because the professor will remember you. The professors at Cal are great. And when I came to the university, I expected like all of my professors to be like, I'm here for research. I'm not here to teach. It's just, that's what comes along with it. Because I think that's a big like stereotype of big research universities. And almost all of my professors have said that teaching undergrads is the best part of their job. So taking advantage of the resources your teacher or your professor puts out there is how you can make your class feel smaller.
Anyone else want to take a stab at that question?
I can answer, Steve. So for me, I think the biggest thing is because I try to get to class early, especially for the bigger classes, and I get to sit in front. And this is more honestly is I know how my attention span is. I have a very short attention span sometimes. I've been messing with my phone and I don't want to. So this is like me showing discipline in the class, but also like being able to be present and be engaged in these big classes. I try to sit in front so I'm not distracted by other people, and I don't have the best vision sometimes. I sit in the back. So I think for big classes, it's that, and not being afraid to ask questions. I think coming into Berkeley, it has like, everyone has this idea of like, oh my God, all these brainiacs go here. What if I say something and I sound stupid? Like, please get over that idea, because you all have so much to contribute. And it happens all the time. I have study groups with friends, and they are so smart, but they're so scared to speak up in class, right? And so no one else gets to kind of get what I get from them when I have a conversation about certain theories and certain ideas. So definitely speak up. I promise you, someone else wants to ask the same question. I know you probably heard that before, but the more you do it, you might be nervous the first few times, the easier it's going to get. And the more the professor's going to get to know your name. So I encourage you to speak up. Don't be scared to sit in front of the class. If you know you have problems, with your attention span like I do. So those are my suggestions.
We have another question from the group, is about declaring majors. How does that work? Is that difficult to do? Can someone walk us through the process of declaring majors?
If it's okay, I can answer this one. For media studies, there's typically a prerequisite that most students can't fulfill until come into Cal. So I actually didn't declare my major until semester after. And one thing I would recommend is to first meet up with your counselor for your major in your department. But if you're in the Letters of Science college, definitely meet with the counselors there. They have a lot of information and they're very helpful. They're willing to help you walk through the process. Typically, all you have to do is fill out a form and have like an unofficial transcript, and you have to submit it before the deadline to your academic advisor.
Anyone else want to talk a little bit about how they declared their major?
Yeah, I could go talk about how I declared MCB. So like Christina said, there are some classes I had to do at Berkeley before I could declare. So I actually transferred in here last fall, so fall of 2019, and I declared at the end of the semester. Like she said, just go talk to your college, the specific school colleges advisors, and they could tell you the process. For me, it was getting my transcript printed out, talking to a counselor, getting a 2-year plan set up, and then going to a faculty member in the department and getting their signature and okay, and then I submitted that form, and that was it. Took like it was a 2-week process because it takes some time to kind of process it all, but at least for MCB and LNS, so molecular and cellular biology in the College of Letters and Science, it wasn't too painful of a process.
Right. Thanks, Dylan, for answering that question. We are a little bit over time, so I want to be conscious of everyone's time. Wanted to point out a couple things. If you still have questions, please schedule an appointment to visit or to talk to one of our counselors. The website is there, transfers.berkeley.edu/appointment. If you want to screenshot that, we are more than welcome, or we're happy to meet with you virtually through Google Hangouts. We could talk about your circumstance and any advice that we would give to you. So if you want to do that, we're happy to meet with you and to help you with this big decision. another thing is we want to thank our committee. You saw some of them in the student panel. They've spent some time thinking about this virtual meeting, this virtual webinar. We spent some days thinking about all this and being intentional. So I wanted to give all of them a shout out. Some of them are not on the webinar; they're on the back end answering questions. So they really kind of gave some thought into this particular webinar. We do have the evaluation. So if you go to this website here, tinyurl.com/TSC webinar 2020, I encourage you to fill out this webinar. At the end of the evaluation, if you screenshot it and text us at that number 510-986-4300, you can enter yourself into a raffle. And the raffle is a gift card, a virtual gift card that we will send to you via email. So in addition to that screenshot, please send us your name and your email and that screenshot, and you'll be entered into the raffle, and we will email you to notify you that you are a winner of our raffle. And that's all we have for tonight. We will continue to have different events. So tomorrow we have a transfer coffee chat from 1 to 3 o'clock, and we will have another webinar on Friday from 2 to 3:30 p.m. We also have our transfer center virtual front desk, which a lot of our student staff staff that. It's open Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So if you want to know and hear more perspectives from students, current students, this is a really great resource to you all. You all have been a really great audience. Please reach out to us if you have questions. And if you decide to come to Cal, we love to see you we'll see you in the fall. And for those who are still deciding, we hope that today's presentation convince you to accepting Cal's offer. And if you need assistance from now until June 1, please reach out to the Transfer Center as we're here to help you during this time, during your transition, and also your time after Cal. So from all of us at the Transfer Center, thank you all for joining us today. We hope to see you all soon.
Steve, you didn't say spring.